In this video, I'll be sharing with you guys my updated 2024 electoral map prediction, and I'm going to fill in the map based on when a winner will be projected in each of the 50 states. We, of course, know that voting will end at various times in the different states across the country, first in states on the East Coast, and the map will slowly fill in out west. But some states, the ultra competitive ones like Michigan, Pennsylvania, Nevada, we're not going to know who won these states for days to come. And so today, I'm going to show you guys exactly how the map will fill in red and blue in this November's election, which is now less than 50 days away. And so we're going to start off at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, where polls will close in these 6 states worth 60 electoral votes. Most of them are going to be called immediately. Indiana, Kentucky, they will be called at 7 p.m. on the dot in favor of Donald Trump. Kamala Harris is instantly going to be the winner in Vermont. South Carolina might take 20-30 minutes longer, but it's basically going to be called right after polls close. However, it will take a lot longer for newscasters to project a winner in Georgia and Virginia. Next up at 7:30 p.m., voting will end in Ohio, West Virginia, and North Carolina. Ohio might be a relatively red state, but it is going to take a little bit longer for it to actually be called in favor of Donald Trump. North Carolina is going to take even longer. Only West Virginia will actually be called at 7:30, and it will go to the former president. And fast forward another 30 minutes, and voting will end in nearly 20 states across the country, worth a total of 171 electoral votes. But remember, Ohio, Virginia, North Carolina, and Georgia, we still have not been able to call these states. Donald Trump at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, he will instantly be declared the winner in Oklahoma, Missouri, Tennessee, Mississippi, and Alabama. Florida is going to take just a little bit longer, while Kamala Harris will be the projected winner in Illinois, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New Jersey, Delaware, Massachusetts, the District of Columbia, and the 1st District of Maine. And then next up at 8:30 p.m., voting will end in just the state of Arkansas, and Trump is instantly going to be declared the winner. And then at 9 p.m., voting will end in another huge block of states. At this point in time, the map is going to be pretty yellow. We still don't know who has won basically any competitive state on the map. It's just states where voting has ended, but a winner has not been declared. In fact, only a quarter of the electoral votes have actually been allocated. And so at 9 p.m., some of these states, though, will be called instantly. Donald Trump will win North and South Dakota, as well as all of Nebraska except the 2nd District, Wyoming, Kansas, and Louisiana. And then Kamala Harris, she will be declared the winner in just Colorado. And then not too long after, between the poll closing at 9 p.m. and then the one at 10 p.m., a few more states are going to be filled in. And for the purpose of this map, we're not going to worry about margins at all. A state is either going to be red or it is going to be blue. And so Kamala Harris, she will be declared the winner in New Mexico at some point before 10 p.m. We also have Donald Trump likely to be finally declared the winner in Ohio, where polls closed nearly 2 hours ago. And then on the East Coast, we also have New Hampshire. It's probably going to go to Kamala Harris. It's a small state. It's not going to take that long for them to count the votes. But in the end, I do expect New Hampshire to be relatively close. Kamala Harris probably won't win by more than 5 points. Joe Biden won the state by 7.4. There's no way Kamala Harris is going to do better than the incumbent president, especially considering Hillary Clinton barely scraped by with a victory in the Granite State 8 years ago. We also have the 2nd District of Maine. It's going to become clear that Trump is going to win it for a 3rd time in a row. Barack Obama won the 2nd District by nearly 10 points in 2012. Trump then flipped it in 2016 and won it again in 2020. And now in 2024, he is going to hold on to it for a 3rd straight election. And finally, in New York, votes will be counted for a little longer in New York. This is going to be the closest election in the Empire State in nearly 30 years. Kamala Harris is probably going to win it by less than 15 points, even though Joe Biden carried the state by 23 just 4 years ago. New York is increasingly shifting to the right, especially as Democratic leaders have proven to be very unpopular in the state. First, they had Andrew Cuomo, who resigned as governor due to sexual harassment allegations, and then Kathy Hochul, the new governor, isn't any more popular. And in New York City, Mayor Eric Adams is facing his own issues, his own investigation, and he is nowhere near popular in the city either. So Democrats really are not doing well in New York. That is why, even though it will be called for Kamala Harris, it is going to take a little bit longer than it did in 2016 and 2020. Before we continue, 85% of you guys are not subscribed, so please take the time to subscribe right now for more content like this leading up to the election in November, and join my Discord server to chat with me personally. Link in the description below. And then at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, we'll have polls close in Montana, Iowa, Utah, and Nevada. Nevada is going to be the final battleground state where voting will end. And at this point, around 1/3 of the Electoral College votes have been allocated, just over a third. And at 10 p.m., Trump is instantly going to be declared the winner in Montana and Utah, while it will take just a little bit longer in Iowa. And then between 10 and 11 p.m., a few more states are going to be called. The first one, and probably one of the most notable ones, is Florida. This state almost always takes forever to call, but that is not going to be the case this time around. I mean, just look back at the election of 2000. It took a Supreme Court order to actually decide this election. On election night, at first, it seemed like Gore was going to win, and then Bush, and then was finally placed into the too close to call category. But today, Florida is a Republican state. In 2020, Donald Trump won Florida for a second time. He did better than he did in 2020, which nobody really could have expected. And so today, Trump is easily going to be seen as the favorite. As long as things are matching up, he will be declared the winner in Florida a lot quicker than he was in 2016 and 2020. And so the Sunshine State will go red for a third time in a row. We also have Maine's at-large vote. That will probably be decided at this point too, and it does favor Kamala Harris. She's probably going to win the state's 2 electoral votes, a state that Joe Biden won by nearly 10 points in the last election. Kamala Harris is probably going to win it by a margin similar to Hillary Clinton's from 2016. She won it by less than 3. We will also probably see Iowa called in favor of Donald Trump. In the past, this state has taken a little bit longer just because in 2016, 2020, it was thought that Democrats still had a good chance at winning this state. That is no longer the case. Iowa is easily going to go in favor of Trump for a third time in a row. Polling in 2020 said that Joe Biden was going to come within 1 to 2% of Trump's vote in the state. He eventually lost it by 8.2%. Today, polls are saying that Trump is going to win by 10 points or more. That is definitely very accurate, and so it's easily going to be a solid red state that will be called pretty quickly in favor of the former president. And now moving on to the 11 p.m. poll closings, voting will end in Washington, Oregon, California, and Idaho. It's pretty easy to see who's going to win these states. Kamala Harris, the favorite in Washington, Oregon, and California. Idaho is instantly going to go in favor of Donald Trump. And so at this point, we have basically the entire continental U.S. filled in either blue, red, or yellow. Only Alaska and Hawaii remain, but we still don't really know who's going to win until we get those results from the key swing states. However, before midnight, we'll probably see Minnesota called in favor of Kamala Harris only because her vice presidential nominee, Tim Walz, is the governor of the state. That's the only reason why she has any lead in Minnesota at all. It's a state that Joe Biden won by 7 points, but Donald Trump almost won Minnesota 8 years ago in 2016. Hillary Clinton defeated him by just over 1 percentage point. It's a Minnesota, a state that hasn't gone red since 1972. It is probably not going to vote for the GOP this time around because Walz is on the ticket. But in less than a decade, I will tell you, Minnesota is going to elect a Republican president or a Republican governor. The state, along with the rest of the Midwest, is moving to the right at a pretty significant rate. We also have Texas, the Lone Star State's 40 electoral votes will provide Trump with a huge boost. Everybody knows that Texas is going to go red. This is not like 2020 when a lot of people thought that Joe Biden had a chance. There were times when Biden led in the polling average in Texas outright by 1 to even sometimes 2 percentage points. In the end, he still lost Texas by 6 points. Kamala Harris is probably going to lose it by 10 points or more. And so Texas is such a big state. It is going to take a little bit longer to call than many others. But before the night is over, Texas should be firmly within the Trump camp. And then at 12 a.m. Eastern Time, voting will end in Alaska and Hawaii. Hawaii will almost instantly be called in favor of Kamala Harris, while Alaska is going to take a little bit longer. We're basically going to get no results for the entirety of the night of November 5th. It's going to be until we get to the 6th, where we'll actually see some numbers come out of Alaska. Obviously, the state is going to go to Trump, but they typically do not project Alaska until at least the next day. And so now at the end of the night, this is probably what the map is going to look like. On November 5th, we are unlikely to see a winner in the election as a whole. It's basically neck and neck. Trump at 216, Harris at 212, with 110 electoral votes still up for grabs. We have basically all of the competitive states left: Virginia, the 2nd District of Nebraska, and Alaska as well. But we're going to have to probably wait until early into the next morning to get any more results. And results are probably first going to come out of Virginia. The reason why it's not called earlier, as it typically is because Virginia is going to be a lot more competitive than it has been in the last 2 elections. The state will probably be decided by a lean margin. And just looking at 2020, yes, Joe Biden did do well, but just 1 year after that, Glenn Youngkin, a Republican, won the governorship. Republicans also won the lieutenant governorship as well as the office of the attorney general. The state has taken a rightward shift in the last few years, and it will probably not be called until the next morning. And we'll probably also see Arizona called in the morning of the day after. 11 electoral votes. This state was actually called in favor of Joe Biden in 2020 on election night. It was called pretty prematurely, according to a lot of people, but Joe Biden won the state by a super narrow margin. There was a good chance he might have actually lost this state if the newscasters didn't get it perfectly, and so they did get it close enough that time. But in 2024, I suspect that they're going to wait a little bit longer. Trump, though, is the favorite in Arizona, a state that Joe Biden barely could win. Kamala Harris, who is a significantly weaker nominee, at least based on all of the data that we have, she does not have nearly as much enthusiasm behind her as Biden did. She isn't polling even close as well as Joe Biden was in the swing states. And so Trump is on track to take back a state that he won by nearly 4 points in 2016. We'll probably also see Wisconsin called not too long after that. The state typically doesn't take that long for a projection to be made. Biden in 2020, for reference, won Wisconsin very early in the morning on the 4th of November, as the election was on the 3rd last time around. This time the election is, of course, on the 5th. And so Wisconsin will go in favor of Donald Trump as well. I think it will be one of the closest races in the entire election, but I do see Trump narrowly taking the victory here, just like he did back in 2016. Wisconsin is the most conservative out of all 4 of the upper Midwestern states. In fact, Trump did better in Wisconsin in 2016 than Biden did in 2020. Kamala Harris may have chosen Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, which of course borders Wisconsin, to be her running mate, but that's probably not going to be enough for her to win Wisconsin for a second time. We'll also see Alaska in the 2nd District of Nebraska called later that day. Alaska in favor of Trump, and the 2nd District of Nebraska in favor of Harris. While at some point on the 6th, I also do expect North Carolina to go in favor of Donald Trump. There's no doubt this state is going to be close. It was close in 2020 when Donald Trump pulled out a victory, even though all the polls said that he was going to lose. he's probably going to win it again at the very least. He's going to do better than he did last time. He won the state by nearly 4 points in 2016. So the Tar Heel state on November 6th at some point will probably be called in favor of the former president. But still, even at this point, there is no candidate at 270. The next state to be called is probably Michigan, either a day or two after the election, and I have Trump winning this state as well. If he wins Wisconsin, I do believe he will win Michigan. I think Trump will do better in Wisconsin than Michigan this time around. That's why I do expect Wisconsin to be called first. Michigan is also a slightly larger state. It will take longer for them to count the votes there, but this is the state that went to Trump back in 2016. He lost it narrowly in 2020, and he is on track to winning it back this time in 2024. And so now we finally have a winner. Trump is at 271 electoral votes, which will mean that he'll become the 47th president. We do still have 3 states remaining, though, and even if he loses all 3 of them, he is still going to become the next president. So in these 3 states, in 2020, it took them 4 days to declare a winner. In 2 days, every other state was basically filled in. And this time around, I do see Georgia being filled in before the other 2. Georgia took a lot longer in 2020 because it was so close, and Joe Biden actually won the state. This time, but Trump will probably take it back, just considering how narrow the incumbent president's margin was 4 years ago. And then Nevada and Pennsylvania, I mean, Nevada takes a really long time. They are just known for being slow. Pennsylvania is probably going to be called first. 19 electoral votes. I have Trump doing better in Pennsylvania than in Nevada. These 19 electoral votes are going to get Trump over 300 electoral votes. As I say, Biden won narrowly in 2020. Trump won it narrowly back in 2016, and it will go back to the former president this time around. And finally, in Nevada, because of how close it's going to be, this is a state that Trump has never won before. If you look at the rest of the states on this map, Trump has won every single one of these other states. He won Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona, all of these states. In 2016, he won North Carolina. In 2016 and 2020, Nevada went to Hillary Clinton, and then it went to Joe Biden. But this time around, Trump is the favorite in Nevada. In fact, he's probably going to do better in the Silver State than he will in Wisconsin and Michigan, despite Nevada not having voted for Republican since George W. Bush 20 years ago. And so this is when election night, or election night continued, will finally end, or I guess you could call it election week. It's going to be around 4 to 5 days after November 5th. And in the end, Trump is on track to prevail with 312 electoral votes to Kamala Harris's 226. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe right now for more content like this leading up to the election in November.